whether you believe it or not, inflation will be here. Right? The government, in essence, is uh, fanning the flames of inflation via supply chain restrictions. We've seen different businesses that are having a hard time finding labor, and as a result, they're having to raise wages, basically, so that they can pull people away from the government. A lot of people are on some form of UBI or unemployment insurance, etc. And so people don't want to go back to work to make a salary that they feel is not beneficial. It's like, why would you go out and get a job that you're going to earn the same amount of money in essence that the government has given you or less? And so what we're seeing is, what we're witnessing is us, in essence, a pseudo UBI that the government is doing. And of course, what they're doing is they're retraining the mind of many of these people. Now, these are typically individuals who are on the poorer end of the spectrum and are not working their way up through the system. And overwhelmingly, it's typically women. During the pandemic, I think for every one man who lost his job, for example, like for every government job, 10 women lost their job, showing that many of these jobs that many women held really weren't that valuable or necessary. But in essence, there's no safety net. Most of the homeless that are on the street are typically men. And especially if you're a man of color, you really don't have a real safety net, right? I think, Kevin Samuels typically talks about how, the average black man makes about 42,000 a year. And so if your goal is to move your way up, well, then you have to make yourself more marketable, more valuable, especially in the era of inflation. Getting a job is fantastic. Acquiring skills is even better. Starting your own business, starting a side hustle is the way to go moving forward. And then eventually you can work your way into investments, whether that's in the stock market, in real estate. If you're investing in different assets, like for example, wine. I'm actually testing out this this new app. This is by no means a sponsor or anything of the sort. I actually had seen this multiple times, and of course, I believe that most Americans will remain single, and women typically love their wines. So I'm trying out this site, which basically invests heavily in wine. And so over the next 6 months, I'm going to invest $1,000 a month for the next 6 months, and see how it returns over the year of 2022, as I believe more women will be single. Drinking, in essence, will go up. And so, especially because of inflation, we will see assets, and typically things like nice wines. And so you have to think in different ways about how you're going to earn yield on your money, especially because as time goes by, your money, in essence, will be worth less over time. And so many people are looking for yield. I invest in food stocks because I know the price of food will go up. I invest in commodities because commodities have been rising. And most of the stocks that I invest in pay dividends. And so I want the income. It's basically what I want. Eventually, I'll move into real estate this year, but I'm going to be doing that abroad, outside of the country, just so that I'm a bit more diversified. So the reason that I bring it up is because even Jesus himself talked about this in the book of Luke, where many individuals, especially if you're trying to live a more righteous life, you're typically trying to do right by others. But Jesus made a good point when he said the master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. Notice, the dishonest manager. Jesus commended the dishonest manager. Why? As he goes on to say, because he acted shrewdly. He says, for the sons of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than with the sons of the light, right? So if you're a person who is just trying to do what is right, you're trying to help out your neighbor, you're in essence following according to the good book because you believe in a creator, you believe that we're all created equally, and so you try to do best by the people that you come in contact with. But often those individuals are often taken advantage of. While you see the Cuomos and the Newsoms, right? You see these individuals who are dishonest, but they act shrewdly with one another, right? Why? For their own preservation. That's why you see a lot of this dishonest gain. And so Jesus said, at the very least, though they are dishonest, they act in a shrewd way. They see the danger and they proceed to act in a way that preserves themselves alive. And Jesus says, well, realistically speaking, I can't fault them at the very least on that one point, that you're at least you're showing a measure of wisdom. And of course, the measure of wisdom that is not being seen by those of the sons of light. And for men, don't have that as an option. You don't have that as an option to not look for yield. You don't have a way of, in essence, falling back on the government like many women do. As I've talked often about how the government is going to go forward with UBI. First, it'll be with minority women, or it might be to women overall. But overwhelmingly, men typically don't have this as a safety net. And so you have to look for ways, whether it's in the stock market, whether you're interested in real estate, you have to find an area or a niche where you can draw income from, whether it's investing over time, utilizing things like YouTube or Twitch or other platforms where you can draw some sort of an advertisement from, so that you can get a little bit more income in your daily life for the purpose of preserving yourself alive, especially if you have the goal of having children. Now, again, I don't recommend it for men who live in America for obvious reasons. And so if your goal is to do that, perhaps maybe abroad, well, then you have to have enough income and the sense of how you're going to financially finance that moving forward, especially if you plan on leaving America. You may have to take your assets from here and bring them to another area, and bring that same sort of mentality of starting a business and investing. Maybe you're going to invest in farmland, start a farm, create a restaurant, or create a food stand, right? Or maybe you want to invest in fruits and create a farm, and you distribute some of that farm produce to supermarkets or to stores. But then you have another portion of that where you're like, you know what, we're going to start another business where we're going to sell smoothies, right? Or we're going to sell salads, we're going to sell health products, right? So there's different ways that you can just take that one business of, I'm going to start a farm, and utilize my other streams of income to fund that until that starts to produce, right? So these are things that men typically have to, especially with what's coming, right? Inflation is going to be here, and will start to ramp up. You will see it in food prices, and you'll see it in other asset classes, whether it's the price of real estate going up, which means eventually the rents will have to match many of these assets. As the price of the asset goes up, the rent will eventually go up. And so you have to be able to do what is necessary to preserve yourself alive for you and perhaps the family that you're looking to have in the future. And so whether it's via stocks, market, like I've said, I've chosen to do this into wine. Wine is a good asset, and I've seen this and I've heard about this site, and I want to give it a try at the very least. So I'm going to put in $1,000 a month into Vinovest. This is, by, like I said, no means sponsored, but at the very least, I'm going to put in $1,000 a month for the next 6 months and see how it looks for the end of 2022, and see if we actually make any sort of yield off of wine. Wine is a great asset to invest in. Women typically enjoy wine, and of course, moving forward, there may be a bit of a shortage when it comes to wine, which means that the prices will go higher. As more women are given UBI, they may be more enticed to, in essence, to buy wine or to consume it. And so, of course, that will rise the prices. And of course, for me, what I'm basically looking for is the yield. And as Jesus said, to act in a way that shows that I am shrewd. It's my recommendation to you men out there, to do what is necessary, at the very least, in a way to preserve yourself alive.